second market day of the week is Tuesday, the 12th of March. Of course, remember, this is the week that takes us effectively to the first half of the third month in the first quarter. Just a quick run through the markets. On Monday to start the new week, we saw a big rally in Zimbabwe at the stock market. The ZSE was largely positive on Monday. The Egyptian stock market was better by 1.41%, much lower than the 5.27% it did when it started on Sunday. But of course, the trajectory to the upside still there in terms of foreign portfolio inflows into the Egyptian market. Then, of course, the Nigerian stock market came in with a 70 basis points as we saw a very big volume in GTCO, with the news coming through that financial services company is looking for 500 billion roughly initial public offer on the Nigerian market. That's a big news in the banking space. One of the biggest news, positive news since we started the new year less than 90 days ago. The rest were a little bit mixed. The Kenya market was better by 0.65. The GSE was down by 0.32%. Shares of ABSA fell around 5% on that. Notes to sterling earnings for full year 2023. And then we've got the resources index also in the red. Then you've got the BRVM down by 0.35%. Let me check through what's the big news across the East African investment, business and finance space, with the IMF approving $120 million to address Uganda's post-COVID slump. It's one of the supports that the President Museveni's administration in Kampala could use. Ethiotel, and of course, that's big news from Ethiopia. Of course, Ethiopia is the only big African economy that does not have a stock exchange of its own, but that's going to change this year as the authorities are looking to set up the new Ethiopian Securities Exchange by the acronym ESX. Of course, they're putting funding together. The banks are buying in. The Sovereign Wealth Fund of Ethiopia will own about 25% of that. The rest 75% will be owned by private investors. It's going to be a very big bump in Ethiopia and for the entire Africa, as well as the north of Kenya and the East Africa's period, looking at other big exchanges within their region. But Ethio Telecom his IPO is being touted as the company to make a big debut on the ESX when it's opened. Tanzanian utility says it's floating $21 million green bond to fund water projects in Samia Suluhu's country, that's in East Africa. And Africa's FinTech Summit roadshow has been planned for April the 17th, ahead of the main event taking place in Nairobi later in September. Those are your headlines east of the continent. Of course, we've got Standard Chartered earnings, also exciting investors as we start today with the news coming overnight. The Standard Chartered will be paying a total of 29 shillings as dividend for last year. Initial interim 9 shillings has been paid, then additional 23 shillings will be paid. This iconic bank is reporting very fantastic earnings for the year just behind us. In West Africa, the listed GTCO mentioned that is planning $525 roughly in the initial public offer. It's going to be a major one for GTCO that is listed on the Nigerian exchange. It's the parent company of Guarantee Trust Bank. And Grego Power says his second quarter, April to June, earnings will be around 9.2 billion profit. And that came from the power company. Leshego in Ghana is looking at 100 million shillings as the first tranche of his bond issuance, and that is expected on the Ghana market this week. We've seen the Ghana stock market moving to the upside over the past few sessions. The BRVM yesterday, Monday, the 11th, admitted 14.9 billion CFA franc of Fidelis Finance bond maturing 2028. That's from Burkina Faso, and that was one big news on the regional French-speaking West African exchange yesterday. And of course, you got the economic community on Central African states. They said they've lifted full sanctions on Gabon months after the military junta took over sometime in 2020, just a few months ago. Of course, recently, ECOWAS in West Africa also lifted economic sanctions on Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. Then you got Eni, the Italian energy giant, is announcing new gas and light oil discovery in Côte d'Ivoire. Côte d'Ivoire is snapping at the heels of Nigeria and Ghana as two of the biggest hydrocarbon exporter or producer in West Africa. It's joining the league of big oil producers on the continent. All right, let's start checking with Southern Africa. Of course, it's a very big week on the data side, but it's going to be later in the week when you got South Africa's mining and manufacturing economic data out, which will take us forward from the last GDP report for last quarter of 2024, which was announced last week, 0.6% for the full year. ABSA's earnings came yesterday, a bit disappointing, just 1% growth in its headline earnings per share. The shares dipped around 5%. Intraday was about 1.3% in the red. The financial services company posted 100 billion rand in revenue. The bank says some of his earnings last year were punched by the situations in last year in Ghana as far as the local bond restructuring program went. And the MBA Bank of Zimbabwe has gotten some support from the FDB, $50 million to support local companies, while Angola says its IMF says double shock nearly halts economic recovery in Angola, Africa's second biggest oil producer. Okay, let's leave Southern Africa and step into the northern corridor. And that's where Egypt is still in the news as the stock market started the new week on a very positive note. But the Ramadan in the Middle East and North Africa economies impact the market a little bit. The Casablanca stock market was finished red on Monday. Egypt's annual core inflation at 5.1% for the month of February. That's no good news if you consider that. If you compare that to 29% in January. Budget deficit for the biggest economy north of the continent worsened to 6.7% in the 8 months of the 2023-24 full year calendar of the authorities in Cairo. And Saham Group in Morocco is bidding for 3 subsidiaries of SocGen, that's Société Générale in sub-Saharan Africa. And finally, UNDP and Germany said they've launched a new renewable initiatives, but that will be in Libya, North Africa. One of the biggest news again, of course, Monday to start a new week was UBA, United Bank for Africa, operating in 20 African countries, announcing $100 million in funding for small and medium enterprises across those 20 countries across Africa. And this was supported by the African Guarantee Fund. And those are your headlines this Tuesday. Let's take it from here for the rest of your trading day. Bye for now.